Hello, everyone, and welcome to Little Legends Podcast. I'm your host, Blevins. With me, as always, is none other than Boob. What's up, buddy?
How's it going? Yes, for all my fans, I'm glad. I'm glad that I'm back, and I'm glad that we're going to be talking about the mid-set patch coming up soon.
Mid-set
Soon,
update coming
tomorrow.
up soon, coming up tomorrow or today or yesterday, depending on when you listen to this.
Because you know today is the nicest day. Get it?
Get it? Because it's a present. Oh wait, that's not the same. That's not the same metaphor. Whoops. Well, moving on, moving right along. I don't know where I was going with that. Get it? Because it's the past is the past, but the present is best. That's why they call it the Never mind. Someone's grandma said that in a movie, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you guys are checking out the Discord, discord.me/Little Legends Podcast. I just need to jump right into the deep end and never come back. That is the place to get all of the updates on the show and stay in contact with both myself and Boop. And also, to most importantly, playing game nights on Friday nights, 9 Eastern. Play game nights. We have been having a good time in the last couple of weeks. Been playing on the PBE with the new set. It's been fun.
Mm-hmm.
We've been getting some new friends in and some returning friends as well. Also, I'm there. It's that's a little bit of a downer for some people, but
it's my favorite part. It's why I don't go. No. There's been a lot going on. It's just that Friday night thing is just like so hit or miss for me. But that might end up changing here soon.
It's going to end up changing for sure.
It is going to end up changing here soon. So let's get in our nice Friday night fight nights.
Yes.
As we can, because when I do come, it's always a blast, and it's always just turns into a lobby 1 versus lobby 2 type of situation.
That's because that's what you do. There was never any lobby 1 versus lobby 2 animosity. You fabricated that.
It's a fabricated story.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's what someone from lobby 1 would say.
True,
but the moral of the story is that it's really, really fun, and we get to try some crazy things, wacky games, builds you'll never see before, and things that I swear works.
That's true. And sometimes Mortdog comes along. He comes along and plays every once in a while. It's always fun, and Boop has innovated. I gotta say, I got destroyed. There was a game that we played. It was Galactic Armory, and one of the items that we got was a death cap. And not one, but 2 people went tier 3 Jarvan with death cap, and I got destroyed.
I might have. I think I'm just, such an innovative thinker. Maybe I am thinking too far ahead. I might have talked about that 4 patches ago, and maybe even had forgotten about it until this very moment, until you reminded me. But the moral of the story is I know I'm pretty great. What can I say? Sorry about your loss. GG's.
I mean,
GG's, broski.
Yeah, GG easy. I mean, there's been multiple times I've heard Mortdog mention Infiltrator Malphite as well, so that's also a Boop creation.
It sure is. Infiltrator Malphite is something that No. It's tap out or dies, technically.
Oh, that's right.
He's the one that did it.
That
right?
is true.
And I saw it, and then I was like, but wait. It was one of those, but wait.
Maybe he discovered it, but you expounded upon the original idea.
And I brought it to a level of knownness that wasn't there previously.
True.
Let's keep going.
Now, Boop, we'll talk about our week in TFT, but I had a question for you specifically, Boop.
Yeah, what's up?
Where were you last Thursday night at around 9 Eastern in regards to TFT? I'm curious.
What do you mean?
This is a setup question for a thing that you did on Thursday, Boop.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, I couldn't tell if this was a bit or if you actually didn't get what I was trying to do.
I was not doing it. I was casting Fight Night, not just as a sub. No, my friends. But as as the official co-caster with Crowan, and it was a crazy day. There's a 3-way tie for third.
Wow.
And Mecha Infiltrators ended up getting the Higao that third place spot, which is just like the dirtiest way I think to do it. But 3-way tie, some crazy stuff. Space Jam won a lobby. Maybe the last time Space Jam wins a lobby ever. After this mid-season patch, and it was a grand old time. It was a good crew. Crowan is super cool. I like making him laugh for some reason.
It is fun because like I have also casted with Crowan the first time I casted Fight Night a million years ago. I was filling in for Casanova. And I casted with Crowan, and like Crowan had been on the on our show before, but like I don't really know Crowan. I didn't really know him that well. I didn't know him beforehand, and he's just like so like chill and down to earth and smart and cool that like you just kind of want to crack that a little bit, right? Like
I know, right? It's like I know there's something in there. I'm gonna connect with it. I'm gonna connect with it, and I will break you.
Boop.
No, in a friendly way.
Yeah, Boop and I are very out there, I guess is the we're out there, and
our goals
we're also very loud.
Yeah, our goals are different than most other people's are.
True.
When it comes to this world. But yeah, I don't know.
We're not talking about the TFT world. We're just talking about the world in general.
I got him a couple times. I forget what, but I remember when I finally got him to kind of like laugh. Like I got like a hearty chortle, and I was like, yes, I'm funny. Like I'm actually funny.
The Crowan Hardy Chortle. I feel like that's a Cards Against Humanity card that would win a lot of
the Hardy Chortle.
No, the Crowan's Hardy Chortle.
Okay. Anyway,
we can workshop that one.
Yeah. We can iterate.
Yeah, that one might need a punch up.
But yeah, no, it's cool to be a part of Giant Slayer, the only group that was providing TFT tournaments for a bit, and it's not just and to be able to like track these players week after week and see the top 3 switch week after week, and it's crazy because Gunmay ended up winning the lobby that I was casting, and also I think ended up getting first in the Giant Slayer series on the Tuesday, which is today.
Nice.
As of our recording. So it was so crazy because last week he was like all down on himself. It was like, I suck at TFT and this and this. And we even talked about it during the cast where it was like Gunmay starts really, really good and then seems to fall off. And he won the lobby with us and then ripped off 2 lobby wins in his group. Unfortunately, Sphinx was also a part of that lobby.
Ooh.
And last I checked,
he's your favorite?
Yeah, he's my favorite. But yeah, and to see a player like him grow throughout weeks is exactly why I like casting this kind of stuff. So if you are masters or above, you can sign up and see if you get placed into the lobby, and maybe you'll be just like Gunmay and rise through the ranks of TFT and find yourself going up against the likes of Soju and all those other really well-known players in the Giant Slayer Lobby 2 series.
Yeah, the Fight Night Rising and the greater Giant Slayer series is just, I mean, it's really cool, because it's the only consistent tournaments that are going on right now. Like, we've got the Liquid one, yes, that's still kind of like a one-off. It's more than one tournament, but it's a one-off sort of series. Giant Slayer series, and I mean, Fight Night's been going on for basically as long as we've been doing the podcast. Maybe a few weeks after, or like very close at the very least. And it's just been really cool to see a lot of these players, like you said, like Gunmay. It's like, some of these players, this is where and we've talked about this before, Boop, where the like organic TFT people are starting to make their names for it.
We talked about it at length, and I was so worried that there would not be a system put in place for people like Sphinx, for people like Gunmay and Nature's BF, and those guys and gals that participate in Fight Night. Same thing with names like Faye, who's doing content for Giant Slayer, right? I don't think they get to where they're at as quickly maybe as they did without the support of groups like Giant Slayer to kind of like give the tier 1 TFT an opportunity to succeed, as well as the rest of the players start making a name for themselves, because it's a pretty, I have to say, I've been a part of a lot of video game communities, and the TFT community is pretty legit. Everyone's really nice and supportive, and we just want to have the best time and have good games, and sometimes we can get frustrated at certain things, but in the end we all love each other, and I feel that even more so now that I get to be like, I switched lunch tables. I was sitting by myself before, like slowly taking apart my sandwich, and like nibbling on it like a rabbit. And now I am doing the same thing, but at the cool kid table.
The cool kid table.
I haven't passed my like initial first round interview. Well, I guess I did. I'm coming back next week, but y'all catch what I'm saying. You catch what I'm saying.
Wait, so where am I in this lunch table analogy? Am I just like jumping around between
gym teacher? Like with the ball and a whistle, like sit over there. No.
I would argue with that, but I think if you could see my entire wardrobe right now on camera, it would be hard for me to argue that I'm not actually a gym teacher right now.
Like at this current time.
Yeah, at this actual second. I mean, my school wouldn't have allowed me to wear this hat, but everything else is basically just screaming gym teacher. I've got no rebuttal to that. But yeah, really cool to see the tournament series still going and like growing, right? Like we're getting all sorts of stuff. We're getting, a different Giant Slayer is also doing sort of the more like tournament focused show every few weeks with Travis and Frodan, which is cool. Doing more of the interview series, that is. So really cool to just see the organic TFT content sphere grow. It's just really awesome to see that happen, because one of the things that I think both you and myself were maybe not worried about as much, but thank you, Rod, for the sub. I'm sorry, podcast people, you're going to hear that, but I do appreciate it. One of the things that we were not exactly worried about, but like it was kind of looming, is TFT on the back of Skara and Disguised Toast and Becca versus like, do we actually get to have a like real competitive scene? Do we get to have a real like this is on its own legs like content scene? And I mean, we're still early on in terms of the life cycle of a game, right? Like the game's not. It hasn't even been a year yet, right? I don't think so.
I mean, the last 2 weeks have been a freaking year, man.
Right.
So it feels like a lot longer, but I mean, in terms of a game's life cycle, this is where a game usually struggles the most, right? You're like past the initial hype of release, right?
Unless you're an Amazon Game Studios game. Yikes.
I actually weirdly like Crucible. Anyway,
I haven't played it, but I just know it's not as popular as it was the first week. Yeah.
No, it's just I was worried about that, and then when Toast went over to Facebook, like that was like another thing that I was a little worried about. Is just who is bringing in the viewers, because we can only live off the back of these influencers and these streamers for so long, and some of you even have moved on to playing other games a little bit more consistently. And what we really should have been thinking about is who was going to take their place, because while I was worried that there potentially isn't a ladder or a good way to do it, that people ended up fighting their way anyway, and we got a lot of those people to stay. Like Becca still continued to grow. throughout all of this, and that's been good to see. Competing in tournaments, Hafu's still playing a lot, but in the end, I think what Giant Slayer does is it also gives the confidence for a lot of these up and coming players to say, "Oh, I can stream. Like I'm competing against the best. Like this guy has got TSM in front of his name, and I just beat him." Right, and that should tell me that I'm good enough to potentially do this, and at least take some time to invest in myself and go after something like this. And I think without Giant Slayer, it would be very, very, or even the Cruise Invitationals and some of the other smaller stuff. Team Liquid, at least the third try for the Team Liquid tourney. If we don't have those opportunities, then we just don't really have those people. There's no reason to stay. So I'm glad there was a good push, at least in terms of news for esports at the beginning of set 3. We haven't seen a good amount of actual Riot-led TFT stuff just yet, but the Giant Slayer stuff has been popping. So at least there is something for them to partake in, get better, and actually innovate strategies on both the ladder and competitive sense. And that's through the backs of, I think, that community that really put blood, sweat, and tears into making stuff like this happen.
Yeah, and we're kind of going off on a tangent, but I'm fine with it. We're gonna obviously get to the mid-set update stuff in just a bit, but I think coming from, and of course I always bring this up, but coming from Magic the Gathering, it's a different sort of mindset than something like League of Legends or Overwatch or any even like newer esport, because it's like, okay, Overwatch League is the premier thing for Overwatch, right? That's done by Blizzard. Okay. LCS, LEC, the whole competitive Riot scene done by Riot. And we've seen obviously big tournaments that are done by third parties, but it always feels like not necessarily cheapened, but like it's a lesser tier than the developer run thing, right? Well, in Magic the Gathering, it's still not the same level, but there are, or at least there were when we could do live events. There is a company called Star City Games, which runs their open series, and they have championships and whatnot. And like, it's not as prestigious necessarily as winning like the Wizards run like Grand Prix or Pro Tours or whatever, but like they are their own ecosystem, and a lot of the like,
it's like tennis, right? You got the 4 Grand Slams, you got the Australian, French, US, and Wimbledon, right? But there's also like hundreds of other tennis that other tournaments that feed you points to potentially get into those big Grand Prix, right? Or Grand Slams. But that's the overall goal, but really they're their own ecosystems too. Because like even in tennis, there's the Challenger Series, which is, I think, people ranked 300 and below. And other things. So like this type of ecosystem has precedent, right? And I think Riot, instead of going the way of Blizzard, which was, we're going to build our own ecosystem.
Well, we're going to build our own ecosystem and also literally not allow the rest of the ecosystem.
And then Riot's like, all right, guys, we'll see what kind of ecosystem there is, and then if you show us something good, we'll take you up on the offer. And I think we showed them something good, because they are doing that the worldwide TFT Invitational or whatever. But in the end, I think it's just good to take part in these tournaments, and these tournaments are functioning well. Because could you imagine if like Giant Slayer and Liquid were having like the same tournament issues, right? What would that look like for TFT? So you got to give a lot of credit for the people who are putting out quality content, not just money grabbing, not just popularity content, right? But like quality content for the sake of the game and the players, not just for themselves. And I think there's a lot of that in TFT, which is really cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who are putting out multiple weekly videos and guides and streaming for dozens of hours every week. It's not just a, oh, well, I'm gonna stream Fortnite and I'm gonna ride this wave, and then when Fortnite isn't popular anymore, I'm gonna quit. It's like there are diehards there, and I think at the end of the day, for almost anything, you need to have that core diehard group that is willing to come, day in and day out and do that. And Giant Slayer and some of the other events that we've worked with are really facilitating that, which is awesome.
Yep.
So, before we get into the mid-season update, did you have any fun or exciting games on PBE, or have you played any PBE yet? Boop.
No, I have not played PBE. My professional answer is
your thing was broken.
My professional answer is because I'm focusing on casting,
Right, the live game.
But it's really because I can't figure out how to log on. So
did you try logging out and then logging back in?
I did, yeah, and I saw that other people were having the same issue as me. Like I saw people like messaging us, and they were like, "Okay, never mind, I fixed it." And I was like, "What did what did I do?" Because I still can't figure it out. So
yeah, it was
I've watched some videos. Urgot is really funny. Random Jannas are funny. Just being like, I wonder what happens if I put Janna in. It is pretty funny.
That has been really funny. I said this in Mort Dog's stream, and he got a kick out of it, so I guess I'll bring it up again. I certainly don't think I know what the best comps in the PBE meta are, but I can tell you with a lot of confidence what some of the best comps aren't.
Which ones?
Pretty much anything revolving around investing a lot of items into Bard. Not worth it. Not the Shojin's Rageblade Bard. Shojin's Rageblade. Although Shojin's Rageblade Bard, it's all about the pivot and not getting too crazy about it. I didn't do that very well. I'm like, okay, I want Astro. I want all of my items are going on Bard. I just want to get to level 9. And then I get to level 9. I'm like, oh, I don't even know why I did this. I did also try to get an early Bard. And so this is my thought process. And a spoiler for the end of the story, it did not work at all. So don't try it if you're playing right now and you think that this is going to be a happy ending. It's not. I failed horribly. I think I got actual 8th when 7th was at like 50 plus health still. It was get a Bard as early as possible and get some mana items or something. Not too much of an investment into him, but like heavy focus on getting a Bard. And then the other half of the comp was going to be Space Pirates. So I'm like not really winning, but I'm getting some kills. I'm getting the gold back from the Space Pirates, and I'm getting the experience from Bard. And I figured I could transition that into 4 Space Pirates and really have a late game comp because I get to level 9 earlier. I'd be getting Gangplanks earlier because of Bard. No, it didn't. It didn't work out at all. Sometimes
so not an infiltrator Malphite situation.
No, it turns out that just winning your rounds is better than being on like an 18-game loss streak and then having a comp finally work and then losing randomly once. Ending your run. Turns out that doesn't work. But I did try it. And
thanks. Thanks for your sacrifice. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I really did sacrifice. Okay, on that note, we're gonna jump to a quick break, and when we return, we'll be talking about the mid-set update, patch 10.12 for Teamfight Tactics. Don't go anywhere. There's no shortage of action going on at our exclusive partner, BetOnline. NASCAR is back, and BetOnline has hundreds of other games, events, and sports to get in on. You can still bet on simulated NFL, NBA, and UFC events 24/7. Or you can participate in our $10,000 Madden Bracket Challenge, a March Madness-style NFL simulation tournament you can enter for free. And live right now on BetOnline's YouTube channel, you can find an exclusive interview with ex-Chicago Bulls Ron Harper, Horace Grant, Bill Cartwright, and Craig Hodges to discuss the Michael Jordan documentary and what they're calling the Final Dance. Visit betonline.ag and use promo code BLUEWIRE to receive your new welcome bonus and check out all of the action. BetOnline, your online wagering solution. Welcome back, everyone. Hope you enjoyed the break. We are coming to you live with the new I don't know why.
Don't
I
sound
don't
so
know.
disappointed.
I don't know why I don't know what I was building up to there. We're back with 10.2 patch highlights, mid-season update. First things first, Boop. Right at the top of the page, my mouth is watering and my lips are smacking already. What? Actually, no joke, they kind of aren't. These three little legends, they don't look very tasty at all, if I'm being completely honest.
Okay. I have a theory here.
Okay.
I think the Bellsware, which is the first one.
The little deer-looking thing.
With the yellow, I think those yellow things look tasty AF.
They do. They do look kind of like those. They look like what are they called? Dots. That Halloween candy. They look like those. Even though those are disgusting.
Nerds or something, or
nerds. Ooh, they might be nerds.
Have you ever had a Nerds rope? That stuff.
Nerds rope is great. The base one looks like banana flavored candy. Which let me tell you, Eric Thomas loves banana flavored candy. That's not even a joke.
Don't ever trust a guy with two fake first names.
Yeah. Or that likes banana flavored candy.
I know that's super weird. But no venison, dude.
Okay.
And in a lot of Nordic cultures, they eat reindeers. So I think that if we were to, I'm not saying this is I would eat reindeer too. But if we're talking like S tier, no, that's gonna still, hit like the Fuwa, the River Sprite, the Silver Wing, right? In my
delicious
opinion,
River Sprite.
Yeah. Silver Horn's like the Fury Horn's like A tier because it's upset. But anyway, the Bellsware I think is like B.
Yeah, I'm thinking like B minus tier, maybe B. Yeah, it's a solid B. It's like it's just okay.
Okay, so our Loot Fairy, our little Apom from Pokemon. Monkey's brains is a delicacy in some countries.
True.
So maybe if you opened up the skull and cooked what was inside of it, you might get a little bit of extra flavor that way.
Yeah. But it also looks kind of like a bird. So maybe it's like a monkey bird.
This looks edible, right? So I don't think we can put it in like deer F tier, but I think it's a solid low C tier.
Yeah, it looks very gamey. It does not look like it would be gamey. very fatty or nutritious. It looks like it could possibly lives in a tropical climate, which I'm already like it's probably not.
Or maybe it's like one of those things where like maybe only the tail tastes good. Like you can like fry the tail,
right? Like cow tails, the candy, because you only eat the. Oh wait, we eat all of the cow. Wow, only the tail tastes good of the cow, not any of the other meat. Don't eat cow meat. And
then the next one is Pegasus, but we all know Hercules is tastier.
Well, folks, that's the end of the show, and I don't mean just this episode. I mean we are canceling. We are canceling the show. I kid. I mean, I would certainly eat horse. There's no.
See, but I think I would eat the monkey bird over horse. Even though when they were like, "Hey, there's horse meat in Taco Bell," I was like, "Okay."
Yeah. Mr. Ed better run.
This is not a show for vegans, I guess.
No.
But the moral of the story is I actually think our Bellsware, our Rudolph cosplayer, B tier.
Yep. I agree.
Our monkey bird, like C minus.
It's
tier,
a C minus, but
very
it's like
close to D.
It's a speculative.
Edible.
It's speculative. I think it's like, possibly a sleeper pick, but until we actually get in there and taste it ourselves, we'll never know.
Yeah. And I think someone who is like, how like Japanese sushi chefs need to be licensed in serving puffer fish, right? It's the same thing when it comes to.
So what makes it purple? Like, what is it eating that makes it purple? I want to know, because that could be tasty.
Because this is what patch notes you guys came for. And then the Pegasus is probably like D tier.
Yeah, D.
I would say there's too many like extra stuff. Like a lot will go to waste with the Pegasus, and I'm not sure how good wings taste.
I'm not eating. Yeah. Wait, I know how good wings taste.
Wait, wings taste great, but like feathered wings.
I hate to tell you this, Boo, but all wings are feathered on birds. Chicken wings have feathers.
All right, so
moving on to the actual pets.
Yep.
Yes, we've got our new traits. Astro Battlecast and Paragon. Astro, we did talk. Yeah, we did talk about these. Astro is kind of just a straight up reducing the mana cost by 30. For all the champions. It's good, obviously, but it's just a little boring. And then Battlecast, when Battlecast champions deal or take 10 instances of damage, they heal if they're below half health or deal damage if they're over half health. Word on the street from our local pro players, Sphinx and Professor TFT, are saying that this is an early to mid game trait that's not super, doesn't really scale super well. So it's like if you can get it, if you can kind of randomly get it early, it's pretty good. Otherwise, don't necessarily go all in on it. And then Paragon is the one-off Gianna trait, which is ally Star Guardian basic attacks are converted into true damage, and other ally basic attacks are converted into mana damage. So, Boob, anything jump out about the new traits themselves?
Yeah, definitely that. I think one of our predictions was that Battlecast was going to fall off a little bit later. It just strikes me as one of those traits that can get you somewhere, but you got to
Yeah.
give you a little bit of pat on the butt to get you over the finish line, right?
Yeah, it also like inherently is better the longer the fights go on, and ironically the fights are shorter when the game is in the
Yeah,
late game because there's usually
exactly.
carries that are doing
Misfortune.
super
Yeah.
not
No,
misfortune
not anymore.
anymore.
Not
No
anymore,
longer
but
misfortune, but yeah.
good example.
Yes, exactly.
And the other thing about Paragon is we should do a whole segment on the podcast when we need one called "I Swear It Works," which is where we think of like a build and I swear it works. How funny would it be? Who has the fastest attack speed of all the Star Guardians?
I don't know that off the top of my head.
Because I wonder if like you can like get a bunch of AD items,
Yeah,
slap them on Zoe, put
right.
put put Janet in there. I wonder how much damage that does.
I'm not sure. I think I would want someone, the attack speeds are probably pretty close, but I feel like I think the more interesting question, but other than like who has the highest base attack speed, is who has the shortest cast time.
Or like our friend in the chat says, you can like maybe you could get the Star Guardian spat on like Lucian
True.
and then have Lucian do true damage.
Or Bard, by the way. Uh Star Guardian
Anyway,
Teemo. You can do Star Guardian
Star
Teemo.
Yeah, you can just I mean technically you could do Star Guardian anything.
Star Guardian
But
Teemo actually has quite a bit of attack speed.
Um, but yeah, I'm excited about it. I'm excited to see how AP mages interact with auto attacks. I'm excited to see Battlecast and how that kind of stands up against some of our other earlier and mid-gamey type
Mhm.
of synergies because we actually do have quite a bit of them. So it should open up the early game a little bit more so than we have right now, which is just like get a Leona and Poppy,
Yep.
or get like a couple Sorks. But everyone's openings seem to be moderately familiar. This should kind of diversify the early game a little bit more, get
Yeah.
it a little bit more rock paper scissory. That's probably what I'm most excited about.
Yeah, what I will say about Janna is that she's actually insane. Her spell itself is really, really good. I did try to keep a Janna, like when I had the ability to, I would keep a Janna like on deck and potentially, depending on who I thought I was going to play against, like swap it in and out. I didn't notice a huge difference there because I think a lot of people just like naturally are going to have like some magic resist, and it's like not the best on it doesn't just work on everything. So definitely interesting, and Janna is really good, and I think that she's a really good sort of payoff for going full Star Guardian, even if you're not stacking out a Zoe or something like that. So
because we're not even seeing that right now.
right.
We're not seeing like any Star Guardians outside of our level 1 or tier 1 Star Guardians.
Right.
Zoe and Poppy being the most popular, just because of where they are in the game.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So
Well,
I'm looking forward to seeing if that even changes,
Mm-hmm.
right, as we go into the next patch, because
Right.
it seems like they've had a hard time with Darkstar and Star Guardians in general.
Well, notably, one thing that I don't think it might be mentioned, it's probably mentioned in the bug fixes at the bottom of the patch, but one thing that more mentioned in the mid-season update video is that there was actually a bug for the entirety of set 3 with Star Guardians that they weren't actually giving the correct amount of mana. So since they fixed the bug, they didn't actually buff Star Guardians. They fixed a bug that now Star Guardians will get the appropriate amount of mana. So they're actually buffed. Even though they're not technically buffed, they are buffed because the bug has been fixed. So I think they were casting at half on the second cast. So they would only get half of the amount of mana back that they're supposed to on the second casts. So they got significantly better because of that fix, and also Janna is really good. So I think Star Guardians will definitely be Star Guardians and just sorcerers in general will be a really big force this new patch.
I'm excited for that. It's such a cool like visual, right? Like
Yeah.
they're visually really satisfying. They're
Mm-hmm.
all of their ults, I think, are really nice. Even though like they can get really annoying, like getting, pelted in the face by a bunch of balls, is only a thing that some people might I'm sorry. Is a thing that, but when you're the Syndra, you're seeing it happen, it's very satisfying.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to see, even though I hate mages and I've been very open to just like in general, like I don't
Yeah.
like to play mages in any game I ever play. But I think in terms of diversity, the closest we can get to every team cop finding a way either through a galaxy or just through the meta
Mm-hmm.
to show itself is a good place. And I think these changes are a good start with that, including some of these new champs, which some of them have some pretty interesting interactions.
Yeah, and there is a ton of stuff, so we're not going to read through everything verbatim. I'll post the link to the patch notes in the show notes here if you haven't seen it already, or you can go to the Discord, discord.me/Little Legends Podcast to look through it all. But the first group here, of course, are the Astros. We've got Nautilus, Astro Vanguard, Bard is an Astro Mystic, Gnar returning as an Astro Brawler, and then Teemo now is a 4-cost Astro Sniper. Gnar's 4-cost, Bard's 3-cost, and Nautilus is 2-cost. Any comments here, Boop, on the Astro champs?
Well, I think the biggest one is Bard, of course. It does the extra experience. A lot of people have been experimenting with that extra
Mm-hmm.
experience and have found very differing results.
Yep.
I don't know if we can actually say what this is about until we see it on live, when I think the sample size is a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
Because right now it doesn't seem like it's that good. Everyone who's talked about it has
Mhm.
has either, I think, built it wrong or maybe isn't using it in the correct situation. But
Yeah.
almost everyone I've talked to has said Bard is a little underwhelming for, I guess, the fantasy of getting that experience.
Yeah. I think he seems like the type of he seems really cool. And every time I see him, I'm like, oh man, I just want to play him. He just seems like it's gonna be so cool and so fun, and it's like a different angle to take. It's like fun. It's almost he almost feels like he's his own little galaxy, that he makes his own galaxy.
Yeah, what people need to realize though is that what you're giving up in experience, you're giving a whole body up for a character that doesn't have a real ultimate,
Right.
right? Because the ultimate is the experience 1 XP, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's more of a macro type of situation,
Right.
and he's only gaining a certain amount of mana on each auto attack. So you're giving up a good amount of board damage by having him in there earlier on, which is fine in the early game since he's going to be auto attacking for longer. Because we just said, the early
Yep.
game lasts for way longer than the late game is, but there's definitely a point where Bard just doesn't work anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And 1 experience felt like a lot, it seemed like a lot, but it doesn't that might not be coming into fruition as we get into live. But that could we could be absolutely wrong as people find, double rapid fire cannon, Ginsu's on them. They get a bunch of
Yeah.
XP. But it doesn't seem to be as big of a problem as people seem to think he was going to be.
I don't think that as is with the stats that he has that he's a problem, or that he's going to be a problem. But the thing about him is that it seems like he's either a problem or he's not an issue at all. It seems like because of how his ability works, it seems very hard to balance that. It's either like if you're not getting him to the point where it seems broken, it's probably not even good enough to be playing, is my initial thought, having only played it a little bit. I also think that he needs to get a lot more experience per round to actually be worth it than people think. Because
yeah, because you're spending 9 gold on him, right, to get to tier 2.
right.
Right? So he has to get at least 9 XP
Right.
to equal out him coming
and
even in terms of like gold differential.
right. And every round that you lose, if he didn't generate you 2 XP, he was a loss. Right? Because if you treat the XP as 1 gold, a win would be 1 gold. So you need to get 2, or else it's just if you only get the 1 XP and you lost, then it's a break even, and then you might as well have just won.
The good news is he can just kind of slot into an auto attack based comp. Like you could just put him in a cybernetic comp because he can hold items that someone else in the comp can hold. But you're investing a lot in terms of taking away from the board, right? And this is why I think the design is really interesting, to where because technically everyone's auto attacks deal with their mana, right? But to have it so intrinsically involved with Bard to balance the actual XP gain is just really cool problem solving. And I think where he's at right now, they can definitely move that, right? They can move the amount of mana. They don't necessarily need to change the amount of experience. But yeah, I mean, like when you think about it in terms of just raw gold, right? It's hard to say that Bard is worth it unless you get your items early and he can start and maybe even win streaking, right? But
if you're super
we
strong.
shall see. We shall see. It feels a little bit more of a win more type of situation, right? Where you are already in a good spot and you just kind of solidify yourself that top 4 by using Bard. But I'm sure there are going to be a lot of other really creative ways of doing it. Because the other thing about gold versus XP is you can save your gold, right? And it doesn't take up that bench spot versus the XP that you don't even know you're getting all of every single round, right? It's a little bit too much of a gamble to be, I think, solid. But again, we'll see once we hit live and how people are building them and any type of innovation.
My thought is that it will get to the point, if it's like workshopped enough, which I mean, we know there are the beautiful minds of TFT that will do all of the math and all that stuff. There's a certain amount of XP that he is going to need to be expected to create within a certain number of rounds. And it will be, I think, not necessarily known exactly, but known relatively what kind of comp you need and what kind of item support or champion support that he needs to hit that threshold. So that, like, after a round or two, I think the best way is, like, what the Bard equation is. And after a round or two, you can be like, okay, I'm ahead of pace on Bard. I can sell him early and cash in my investment essentially now, versus like, oh man, I'm really gonna try to make Bard. I'm saying this from experience. I'm gonna really try to make Bard work here, and it's like, oh, he barely got 1 ult off, and I still lost. It's like that's a losing thing, and I am just too proud to sell my Bard now. I just want to make it work.
Win more and lose more. Right. That's the give and take. It's the same thing with anything in Vegas, right? You can bet $100 on black one time and win, get 200 back. Bet 200 on red, lose, you're all gone.
And then you get bit, and then you get bit by a horse.
You get bit by a horse. That really happened to me.
Named don't tell me. Named, it's something to do with the Caribbean.
It's
not Jamaica. It's
just think about the music.
Uh, Reggae.
Yeah, the horse that bit me was named Reggae.
Oh wow, I'm surprised I
Um,
remembered that.
yeah.
That's a 3 episodes ago. Little
um,
spoiler or not spoiler.
but
Callback
I
there.
think the but I think the greater question when it comes to more so Bard is just like Astro as a trait. You know me, right? You get 3 Astros, so their mana gets increased, right?
Mhm.
Not my favorite type
Decreased.
of trait. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's those seem like traits that are almost like necessary evils for a game like this,
Yeah.
right? Not everything can be rebels where you have to change every single time,
Right.
for example, or even blasters, right? Infiltrators where positioning is super super important.
Hmm.
And while positioning for Astros and everything is really really important, just like with Valkyrie, right? I wasn't a big fan of just like, all right, you
Hmm.
have this Mana Reaver, kind of pulled it off
Yeah.
in terms of it working healthily. And I can't really quite put my finger onto why. And a lot of people might disagree with me on that one. But I think that's the greater, like, general design question I have that we have sworn that we're going to spend, I think, a whole episode on one day.
Yeah. It'll be one of our like
Talking
off week
about.
episodes where we deep dive on it.
Yeah, because we gotta keep going because we got some battle cast to
Yeah,
talk
we do
about.
have Battlecast. One last thing I wanted to talk about is that I've been really underwhelmed with Teemo, just in general. I haven't really found a good build for him, and I haven't really gotten a ton out of him yet. But I think that he is in a really interesting spot because he can be built as an auto attacker and also can be built as a caster, which I think is a very uh, potentially dangerous place for a 4 cost like carry type champion to be, because you can, like, regardless of your items, if you get him, if he's strong, if his base stats are strong enough, you can actually pull it off and be in a good spot. So
Well,
uh
he is kind of like that in the regular game.
yeah.
One of the few characters that could be built AP and AD. AP is just way better right now, but I
Hmm.
like that they keep that thematic in the game.
Yeah, I like it too. Okay, we've got the battle cast. We've got Ilaoi, battle cast brawler, 1 cost. Nocturne is back, but he's a 1 cost infiltrator. Kog'Maw is a 2 cost blaster. Cassiopeia, 3 cost mystic battlecast. Victor, 4 cost sorcerer battlecast. And then the big boy, Urgot, is a 5 cost battlecast protector. Who's jumping out to you on the battlecast side, Boop?
Okay, this is I think it's really cool, and I'm so excited to finally see it. I don't remember if there's been any other character that does this, but there's a certain word in Alawi's tentacle smash that I really, really like. Alawi slams a tentacle in a lion in front of her, dealing 125, 200, 325 damage and stealing
Mm-hmm.
20, 30, 50% armor and magic resist from each target hit for 4 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so that's a big deal, especially interacting with the battlecast trait. So
Yep.
she's pretty baller when it comes to if you want. She's pretty baller for a brawler.
You're on a roll
um,
today.
I know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I feel like I'm like compensating for some reason. Anyway, no. The Alawi stealing is such a, like, a cool idea, right?
Hmm.
Because it's also temporary, right? So once she's dead, you'll get it back after 4 seconds, but it kind of neuters some of those early game blasters, for
Hmm.
example. Like maybe she steals that art, or even some of those early game other brawlers like Malphites, where you or Poppies, where she steals that armor, and
Yeah.
since it's a percent based, she's stealing based off of what they have. So she's going to get more value off of armor items. So she
Hmm.
actually could potentially scale a little bit better later on. But yeah, it's just that word stealing. I
Yeah.
really, really like, as opposed to just like stealing mana like demons
Right.
back in the good old days
Mm,
in set one.
mm,
But the
eh.
I really like the concept of stealing
Yeah.
stats
Hmm.
like that.
I think it is a really cool place to go to explore for sure. She does. She is interesting because, like, 20, 30, 50% of armor and magic resist, that's probably not like a ton, but it's not nothing, right? And she deals an all right amount of damage, but not a ton. But it's not nothing. So she's like, seems like she's like really in
Just
the
solid.
middle, just a solid like
Yeah.
in the middle 1 cost brawler, which is It shifts the paradigm for brawlers because we lost a brawler in Cho'Gath, but he's a 4-cost brawler, and it's replaced. He's replaced by a 1-cost brawler. So now
Oh,
brawlers.
Gnar.
Oh yeah. So we just get a plus of a brawler then?
Yeah, so we have 2 tier 1 brawlers now with Malphite and Alawi.
Okay, so we're at +1 total brawler, unless I'm forgetting one that was removed, but I don't think I am. Voids, yeah. So yeah, it still changes the paradigm of brawlers in that there are now more. So I think that's gonna push, like, maybe not necessarily brawler blasters, but like brawler is gonna be the easy like, here, build a front line. Here, you got it.
Like it'll be
easy.
brawlers versus vanguards.
Right.
Early game most likely. And the cool thing about Alawi too is that you might be able to get away, like say there are a ton of brawlers in your lobby, right? You might be able to get away with building her with attack damage and just hoping that you steal a bunch of their armor and magic resist.
Yeah.
Right? And just using them for your statted defensive items.
Yeah.
I like the stealing, but that's the type of thought process I like thinking about, right? Like those kinds of like next level, like, oh, but if we take back this layer, maybe we can do it this way. And sometimes you're just trying too hard. Like I think that might be, but in the end, like those conversations are what should be started and should be had between all TFT fans, and that's that type of language, like stealing. It might be super simple to some people, but for me, makes me really, really excited. Much more excited than something that affects shields, like Cassiopeia.
Yeah, I was gonna say I really actually have liked Cassiopeia just because she has. Well, it doesn't say on here, but she's got a really low mana pool. It's like 40, I think, or it might even be lower than that. It's like she casts super fast, and I made her a Star Guardian one game, and let me tell you, that actually worked. She was my 6-star Guardian. I got 6-star Guardian with Cassiopeia, and she was providing a ton. I mean, it was like mana printer in a sense, because she was fueling the other Star Guardians. And like, you throw a red buff on her, or a Morello on her, and all of a sudden she's spreading Morello to everybody because she casts so quickly, and she targets an unpoisoned enemy. So like, it's not that she doesn't do AoE, she just single targets so fast that it might as well be AoE. So I really liked her as sort of an interesting carry option, because also with Morello, that's also each burn tick is another tick towards her battle cast. So I think Cassio, I mean, even though she's a mystic, she's actually in an interesting spot to be like almost like a secondary carry. I had her as a main carry, which I don't think is super probably not top tier, but it was fun. I think she could definitely be like, she seems like the type of champ that you can give like one item, like give her just a Morello, and she's gonna really bring a lot of comps together.
Yeah, you put Karma next to her, give her even faster, auto attacks.
Yeah.
The Mystic buff. Oh, that's
exactly what I did, actually. It was fun, at least.
All right, you ready to finish this out? The newbies here?
Yeah.
Or maybe even some not so newbies, but coming back looking a little different. We'll go through the rest. So Urgot, Battlecast Protector. He is one shot. That's his ult, pretty much.
Yep.
Janna is, we talked about it, Star Guardian Paragon. I do want to read this one just real quick because I don't think a lot of people have actually read this. So it's not just a passive that she has an actual ability. Janna summons 5 tornadoes, which fly forward in a large cone. Tornadoes grant allies they pass through 100, 150, 500% attack speed for 5 seconds. And I bet that scales with AP while knocking up and stunning enemies for 1.5 seconds. So if you're already committing to building attack speed Jarvan with Rabadons, you could do the same on Janna, right? And probably makes even more sense. Riven, Riven is Chrono Blade Master. She's the one that you build AP. Vayne is the cybernetic sniper, who I feel might win for hardest to balance in the set, and then Zed is Rebel Infiltrator, which is very, very needed. The Rebels needed an Infiltrator
Yeah.
like so bad.
Well,
So
and
go ahead.
I was gonna say he has that keyword that we talked about earlier, steals.
Steals, right? I love it.
Yeah, I think Zed is interesting. Riven is one I haven't quite wrapped my head around because I have been building her wrong for sure. Like she's very weird because she's a Chrono Blade Master, but she's essentially a mage, right? Like she is a sorcerer, but she just doesn't have sorcerer tagged onto her. So it's like a bait to go Blade Masters with her. Like it's not actually, I don't think, that good to go Blade Masters with her. I
Yeah,
want
you want to build her
to,
AP. Her
yeah,
scaling's pretty good.
I want to put like Rage Blade, like Death Cap, or Morello's and RFC, and just have her be like a backline like mage, and see how that works. But she seems really cool. I just haven't gotten a good shot to actually build her correctly. Vayne, I've had a couple of interesting games with her. She's not as broken as I thought.
She's already gone through some of these characters have gone through some nerfs already.
Yeah.
I think Cassiopeia's one, Vayne was one.
Yep.
Urgot, I think Jan has been touched. So these are not like the first iterations.
Right.
So yeah, let's talk about Vayne because I, I I don't know how I feel about a sniper that can move. Right? Like at first I
Yeah.
thought that was really, really cool. And then I started like really thinking about it. And I'm like, well, it's either gonna make her really bad or really good. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
OG Kaisa had a little bit of that same problem,
Yes.
right? Where she would just jump and die.
Yeah.
Right? She was so you needed to get Kaisa too, but once you did, there was that one build on her that was kind of Exodia like.
Trap
I forget what it
Claw,
was.
Rage Blade, and blue. What's it called?
Giant Slayer?
Oh yeah, it
No.
was Giant. Well, it was Giant Slayer. It was just two Giant Slayers and like a Trap Claw. That
But
at
since
that time
she's
when Giant Slayer was broken.
yeah, and I think the biggest thing with her is the whole her dropping aggro. So every time she ults, she kind
Yeah.
of gets a reset, and that could be hard to balance once people start itemizing correctly. And she is tier 3, so they did say in her whole like intro that people expect to build her as a carry, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it gives snipers a lot more agency to go the cybernetic route,
Yeah.
because you're potentially going to be using Caitlyn too for Chrono, um,
Yeah.
for Chrono Sniper to get even more attack speed. And I don't know, the dropping aggro seems to be a potential problem to me in terms of power.
Feels like a sniper version of Shaco, or like Kha'Zix from set 2. Because like they did a similar thing where it's like every few seconds they drop aggro, they like do a big attack and then drop aggro. Like Shaco's almost exactly like Kha'Zix was in the last set. So I'm wondering how good she's. I think because I mean you think of Kha'Zix from last set as well as Shaco. At a lot of points in set 3, like those are solid like carry options, right? Like Shaco has been very good at times. Kha'Zix in the last set was quite good for a while. Cybernetic Sniper are both at the very least relevant tags, and I think that it fits that spot of like she can be the star of a comp. You can go a 3-star Vayne and probably really wipe the floor with some folks and go all in on cybernetics and snipers with maybe Chrono in there, or she can be like that secondary carry as well. I think that she's going to be in a really solid spot. I don't know. I think depending on the numbers, she's a very much a number focused one though. Like, is she a little bit too pushed or not pushed enough? And I think that's going to dictate whether she's dominant or just all right.
Yeah, we'll find out next week once everyone starts complaining about it.
Yeah, exactly. The only other one I wanted to talk about is no one. The person I wanted to talk about, I Don't remember which one it was, so wasn't that important. Let's talk about who was removed. Void and Valkyries are gone, which means
see you later. Get out of
smell
here.
ya later. And the champions we lost, of course, are all the Void and Valkyries: Kha'Zix, Cho'Gath, Vel'Koz, Kai'Sa, Kayle, Misfortune, and then also as one-offs, we lost Sona, Lux, and Kassadin, and we also lost the Lilac Galaxy. I mean, boop. Void for the last, 2 patches has been, if not dominant, at least a big force in the meta, as well as Valkyries. I mean, Kayle, anyone ever heard of Kayle? She's been the best champ in the game, I think, silently for a very long time and loudly for at least the past few patches.
Yeah, and I actually think missing out on Kassadin found himself just in a lot of comps. So
Yep.
that's going to be an interesting loss too. And we're taking his ability out of the game, the mass disarm, is also very interesting. We just don't have that anymore. So maybe unless it's with I'm blanking on the name right now. Not Curse Blade.
No, Curse Blade is an old item that doesn't exist anymore. Swordbreaker.
Yeah, I got there.
That's gonna be a no for me, dog. Yeah, Kassadin really fit a spot in the meta that I'm trying to think of specific examples. Gangplank from set 1 is the only one that really jumps out to me of he's a centerpiece of a couple of comps that allows you to. There's probably some in set 2 that I'm just not thinking of. Gnar in set 1, but I'm thinking more like you can have him and then he allows you to connect multiple comps together.
Oh, I think the best example of that we've ever had was Kennen.
Yes.
From set 1.
Yes,
with
100%.
Ninja Elemental.
Yes. So just the ability to you can have these 2 kind of close comps, and then Kassadin really seals it. It turns on 2 synergies. It gives you maybe, a little bit, he's not super dominant, right? He's not carrying necessarily unless you build it that, but he's just giving you a really interesting ability. He's giving you
disables the Kayle sometimes.
Yeah. Celestial is just a solid all around trade.
Right, he's always the partner, right? So the Ashe can be good. The Kassadin was good. For example in Space Jam, right? So the biggest I like Kassadin for some reason, and I've liked all the iterations of Kassadin except for Kassadin. But I'm gonna miss him. That's just me gonna miss him.
I'm gonna miss him too. I'm kind of interested. He seemed like a weird one to cut. But no matter. Okay. There's some rank changes, but I don't think it's really super interesting.
The only one is the only time you get the Victorious Little Legend is if you place gold or higher this season and next season.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you haven't placed, I think you're out of luck, unfortunately, unless you can get your placements in and then get gold by tomorrow morning.
Good luck.
And good luck to that. But things are going to be coming in the new battle pass. Should be starting tomorrow as well.
Yes, which should be sweet. Okay, and then new Galaxy odds. I think we talked about last time. There's some miscellaneous stuff. Tier 3 champions. It's going from 16 to 18 total in the pool. So now you can get 2 Tier 3s of a 3 cost now. So that's slightly relevant, right? If they have the Tier 3. If they have the Tier 3 Vayne, you can still go for it if you want.
That was the whole point, was that 2 people could. The next thing here, we said we would talk about a little bit more this week, so let's go ahead and do it. The term skill expression, right? 1 star and Tier 1 champions sell back for their full gold value.
Right.
All others sell for 1 less gold than their full gold. That's different. Example, 2-star Tier 3 champion sell value 5 to 8, 3 stars. So they dropped it by a gold.
Okay.
So they did change it for live. So that's better. So I guess they did agree that there was a little lack of skill expression there, a little bit too much of a safety net. For building things and committing, because I think if you're getting to a point where you are building Tier 2s and stuff like that, you should at least have a consequence for committing and using your money that way, right? It's just kind of like buying something at Walmart and then just deciding you don't want it and then getting a full refund back.
Yeah, I think what it does in a vacuum is just like, oh well, I have no cost to. I have no. I'm just gonna play the best thing every single round and never care about my synergy because I can just play. There's never a choice, right? Like, okay, do I play this tier one? Do I play this tier one? I'm just making up a random example. Do I play this tier one Astro to give me 3 Astro? Or do I play this tier 2 Battlecast unit, but I don't have any Battlecast units? So it's just a tier 2 that's stronger. It's like, is there ever a choice there? Now it's just like, I'll just do both. I'll just play the tier 2, the tier 2 3 cost or whatever, and just play it because there's no penalty whatsoever. So I think the small penalty at least makes some of those decisions where it's like, oh, if you get a tier 2 unit, you just always play it at all times and then just sell it later when you get the one that you want, right? Like, just play tier 2 units of the game is kind of boring. Like, the synergies are fun. Having a comp that makes sense and that you're building towards something and you're actualizing either a strategy or like a cool dream of a strategy is part of the fun of TFT. It's not just, oh,
But
let me see what triples I get and play those.
let me bring you back to Nobles set 1. Man, this has been a history lesson of a podcast, hasn't it? I can't believe Kennen. I like totally forgot Kennen was in that set until just then.
That was like one of the
But
most
anyway,
the iconic champs
I
of the set.
know,
We haven't
right?
seen him
And we
since
never talk about it.
because
Anyway,
we haven't seen him. No ninja, Rift
so
ninjas.
the reason why I bring up Nobles is because there was a period of time where it was just like you bought Nobles and just put them in your bench, and then once you got all 6, right? Once you hit Kale, you just put all your Nobles in,
Yes, but
right?
you were
And sold the rest of your team.
yes. But the difference is that there was still a cost to that, right? Obviously the financial cost. It was just that the payoff was more so than the cost it was.
Well, yeah, you lost a ton before you got there, most
Right.
likely.
And then
Right, so
on those
that was the
patches,
give and
like
take.
6 nobles or whatever it was busted and you couldn't lose. Like, it beat everything, right? If I recall correctly.
But what is the argument for? I need to hear before I can like really fully say, oh, skill expression, like I did last time I was on a podcast with you 2 weeks ago. The I need to I think I need to educate myself more on the other side, right? Like, what is too consequential, right? What is too punishing when it comes to this kind of thing? Does it actually open up skill expression by giving more options? While the options aren't synergy related to be able to identify the best 2 champ. You know what I mean? I think there's arguments on both sides, and I'm not well versed enough on the
I,
other side
I
to,
just
to fully say we need to go back to the old way.
I think that the what it is now or what is going to go to live is a good compromise. I think if it's no penalty whatsoever, right? You just buy out in the early game, you buy out the shop every round that you can, and if you ever get a pair, you do this with 1 cost already, right? Because there is no because the early game synergies don't really matter, and the a tier 2 1 cost is just going to be way better than any number of just tier 1 cost. So I think if without the financial burden of it, the rest of the mid game, early and mid game, just turns into what the very early game is, which is buy out the shop, try to hit your triples and just play those units in your comp rather than like, okay, I'm gonna level early. I'm gonna get in Chrono and Blade Master here, and I'm gonna have a level 1 here. Maybe I have like a tier 1 4 cost or something like that, and like have a comp that is there, and maybe that's not stronger than just having if you have the option to make a tier 2 Kog'Maw versus play this this vein that is going to fit in your comp. Like, the Kog'Maw is going to be stronger right now than the tier 1 vein, even with the synergies, but you're going to need to win for you're going to need to win 2 extra rounds to pay for that money that you're essentially investing into the tier 2 Kog'Maw, if that makes sense. Now you only need to win one extra round.
This is one of those changes, though, that just goes into a whole other discussion of who you're balancing for, right?
Right.
Because there are 90% of players that probably won't even realize a change, right?
You're
Um,
correct.
it's the other 10% that I think are affected by this quite a bit.
Yes.
And that's who we're speaking about, right? Because most people who listen to this podcast, this one gold doesn't really matter. Right?
Right.
Like in our gold games, right? It's not going to
Yeah.
matter.
And yet you see players like Soju and a lot of these players that are in the Giant Slayer series that are like selling off their entire benches just to hit an extra econ. And like
yeah, exactly, just to get to 10. Right? Like
right.
one gold is a huge, huge deal.
Yeah, especially early,
at
yeah.
higher levels of play, right? Because
Mhm.
sometimes you get to a point and you're at 49 gold and you can't hit anything, and that's a ton of gold you're missing on that next turn, right? So
Mhm.
just because you missed out on one gold, so it isn't inconsequential. This is just one of those changes that will affect higher levels of play, maybe open up, maybe lower the bar just a tad to that upper echelon of 10%, maybe making it like 11 and 12. But in the grand scheme of things, most of us won't feel this change or
Right.
won't understand why we have more money all of a sudden.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
We
And
won't feel
so,
it. I don't think we'll feel it at all, honestly. I think
yeah,
it will impact.
same thing with the Nico's help thing, where Nico's always works.
Yes.
Right. So, and I've gone through a little bit of a change because at first I was like not a fan, but now it's like where my thought process is, all right, so for this top 10%, how much is this affecting their play? It
Right.
sounds like kind of a lot, right? When it comes to the late game and mid game, right? And
Right.
econing and this and that. It's going to be easier to econ. And I think econing is one of the biggest parts of skill expression in this game, right?
Oh,
How
yeah.
you use your money.
Mhm.
Like me, I just use all of it.
Yep.
Where other people know when to use all of it versus when to roll to 30,
Right.
et cetera, et cetera. And that one gold that it is going to be consequential, but I think we're going to need a little bit more time to see really if this affects anything at all.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that Mort will have the statistics, mostly for like diamond and up games is what I'm
Yeah.
interested in.
So one thing that I've heard Mort say, and I don't know if this is an overarching theme, and maybe he can comment on this in the Discord or on Twitter or something. He was asked, who do you balance for, right? Are you balancing for the casual pleb that's playing on their phone? Are you balancing for the pro players and tournament play? Are you balancing for what are you balancing for? And the answer he gave, at least for right now, and what they're basing as an overarching sort of motive and motif for what they're balancing on, is we are balancing. It's some I don't know the exact quote, but the distillation of it is we're balancing for computers playing against each other. We are balancing in a world where we're balancing where everyone that is playing knows the most optimal way to play and is playing optimally. So if that is the case, what needs to happen? What should this be? Now that opens up a lot of room for, if you know what the best things are and you are playing optimally, you actually get a pretty big advantage against someone who doesn't know, if the game is balanced for that, right? Because some things like Bard, for instance, maybe Bard is broken if you know how to build him correctly, but if you don't, he just seems adequate.
Yep.
I don't know if that's the case right now, but that's the sort of mentality, and I think it's definitely a bold choice to make, because I mean, we've talked about a lot of different things in terms of playability and like people feeling punished for things and all that stuff, skill expression, and like if computers are playing, okay, they get to take away, computers get to take away the emotional part of the game out, right? It's like, man, Bard is really good, but he's only good if you buy him between these 2 rounds and you play him for exactly 4 rounds and he nets you 7 experience. I'm making these numbers up entirely, obviously.
I
That's
would
the
love
sweet
to
spot.
see like this kind of turn into a situation where like maybe there's like 4 players and 4 computers playing, I'd pay to like
I want to
that'd be
see.
sick to watch.
I want to see
Kind of
that.
like in chess.
Well, chess does that, and Dota does that too, and StarCraft too. Now
Yeah.
is it DeepMind? Is
I
that
think it is just like I think it's just DeepMind. Is it Winston? What is his name from Jeopardy?
Oh, his name is Watson.
Watson.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that'd be really interesting to see how people played
How
because in a game that does involve some, RNG and the fact that it's like 8 people, right? So how does
Right.
one computer against 7 people do versus 4 computers versus 4 people? That's some
Yeah.
interesting stuff I'd love to see one day, but
Yeah,
that's probably
because there
far in
can
the
always
future.
be the wild card that's going to throw off the computer. And like, what does the
Yeah,
computer do if
exactly.
all
Because
7 of the people are trying to troll it, like we've done in
there's a
game
thing
night
in chess
before?
right now. There's a thing in chess right now where since all the strategies have kind of been figured out, right? You just do the opposite. You just do something random,
Yeah,
right? And just like put the game in a state that's random that the computer has never seen before, and then
yeah.
that puts you on more even footing,
Well,
which
yeah,
is interesting that we've come to that. Like I'm sure we'll get there with like Scrabble and other things, but
yeah.
um I
Well,
think TFT is like ready and waiting for that kind of situation.
yeah. Well, it's really interesting because I have actually just because of the fact that chess is kind of blown up on Twitch. I've been watching a good amount of oh God, what's the big chess streamer's name? I can't think of what his name is.
I
Uh,
started recently playing again too. For some reason, it's way more fun than I remember
I'm
it being.
I'm really bad. Why can't I think of what his name is? He's not even streaming, of course. Someone will know and yell at me. But he is now it's gonna bug me. But he was playing a game and he was watching XQC play, and he's a grandmaster in chess and like one of the best players in the world. Period. Um, and he also comes from a teaching chess background, so he understands very much where a lower level player's head is, right? And people in the chat were asking like, "Oh, this was a bad play from XQC. How come you're not pointing that out?" And he goes, "Well, if XQC was a grandmaster, I'd be pointing out." And he goes through this like really long, chess logic thing of like why this was a bad move and like how this leads to this and this leads to this and this is this and he's going to be in a bad position here. But because XQC is not a grandmaster and he's not a beginner but like a intermediate level player, he's like, okay, this is the thought process going behind this. And XQC is developing his pieces. He's getting his knights into play, and he's got some good angles here and all this other like very high level basic chess stuff. Where like if a grandmaster made this play, it'd be terrible. But because an intermediate level player is making this play, it's all right given the like high concepts of chess, and the fact that because he's also playing against an intermediate, it's unlikely that his opponent is going to be playing perfectly and knows the counters to what's happening, right? And
Yeah, I got you, buddy. It's the same thing as button mashers versus people who know how to play fighting games.
kind of.
Right? Sometimes the button masher will still beat you. Right?
Well,
Regardless of their level, right?
well, that's not necessarily the point I'm making, though that is true. The underlying point I'm making is that like when you're watching these games on chess, is that if you're watching with the tools on, you can see like the computer will essentially tell you like, was this move a plus advantage move in the grand scheme of thing or a minus thing? And the computer is saying that it was a plus move, but it is really bothering me what his name is. I can't think. But the grandmaster is saying, "Oh, this was a bad play," because, and then goes through this whole like grandmaster thing. But the computer thought it was a good play because of the level that they're playing at and the fact that he's unlikely to get punished in the perfect way. So like that's where the difference is, right? Like the computer is calibrated to their rating, I guess. But actually it's a bad play if it were grandmasters playing, if that makes sense. Like the play is different depending on who's playing it, right? Like certain things are different at or better or worse at different levels. So long and convoluted way of saying XQC sucks at chess. That's actually not true. He would destroy me. I'm very bad. I can't be talking shit. But yeah, I think it's an interesting place to be balancing TFT off of. I like it personally, I think, but it's interesting nonetheless. It's a bold choice.
Cotton. We'll see if it pays off.
Yeah.
All right. So we still have literal hundreds of things to go through. So what I think we should, I mean, if you go through like every single one of them, like Annie Health 7 to 750, Annie Mana 75 150, I think we actually hit maybe 100. Is there a way to find out? Anyway, so just in general, are a lot of things are getting kind of like touched and changed a little bit. For example, no more Lilac Galaxy.
Hikaru, that's who it is. Sorry, that was bugging me so bad.
And then normal Galaxy is going to be only 20% of the game, so you're more likely, unless you're me, you're more likely to get a Galaxy than not.
Yep.
And then in terms of traits, the big one here is Dark Stars.
Yep.
So Dark Stars now get their damage buffs whenever an ally dies rather than just another Dark Star. I asked this to Crow and I was like, what's wrong with Dark Star? And he was just like, it's just bad. And I was like, and then he went into it. So go back and watch that if you want to figure it out.
Yeah.
Other than that,
it's also now a 246 instead of a 369.
Which used to be the beginning of my phone number. Anyway. I don't know, 369-5815, Hinesville, Georgia. Anyway, the other big change is mech pilots. So they're now going to be ejected at 35% health, which means that the mech gets stronger in some ways, but all the pilots have gotten weaker. But some of the pilots have been touched with other different buffs, like Infiltrators got like a little bit of a buff. So Fizz, who found himself in a little bit of a squid infiltrator team comp without the mechs, we'll get a little bit of Rumble got another buff. So the individual pilots are coming out a little stronger, but they're also going to be way weaker because they'll be at 30%
in terms of health.
So
you're
not going to get chum the waters like 8 times by the Fizz that comes out.
That's like going from 100 health to 35%. That's huge. I feel like a lot of those pilots get just chunked away.
The idea is that the mech gets stronger and that the mech is the fantasy and the mech is doing all of the work, not like, oh, mech did as much as it can. Now it's up to the pilots to like pop out and do some crazy, work with, demo and other things. I think that's what because the mech armor is going from 30 to 70. So
that's true.
There's not going to be these poppies that are out tanking the mech, which are 3 different characters.
Yeah, but guess what? Urgot can one-shot the mech, though, so...
Well, that's at least consistent since he can one-shot everything.
That's true. I just think it's tough because, like, now, like, if it went from, like, 100% to, like, 60%, it's like, okay, the mech pilots are very much weakened from what they were before, and, like... Maybe they don't just it's not like the phases of a boss where it's like, okay, you killed the first phase, which was the first part of the mech because of Guardian Angel. Then it come back. Oh, I killed the second phase. Okay, great. Now I go to the third phase and I kill the Rumble, and he comes back with Guardian Angel, and the fourth phase is the rest of them coming back. It's now more like the first phase is the strongest phase, which is the mech, and then just clean up the rest of the garbage that comes out of the mech. It's like the boss dies, and then there's like a few minions that come out.
It's like the trash around them.
Right.
But no, okay, so let me talk it through this way, okay? So, yes, pilot health on eject going from 100 to 35. But listen to this. All right. Mech health, 1,500 plus 45% of pilots to 22. That's a 700 HP buff just already. Right. Plus 50% of pilots. Plus you're going to get 5% extra health. Right. So the idea, I think, is making them pilots instead of like units that you use to make them mech, because the way that they also change some of the traits plus buffed Rumble is, and Annie, is they made Annie and Rumble tankier. Just across the board. So now hopefully they can slot into individual comps that aren't mech comps, right? Because I think that's the goal. I
Yeah,
think
that
of
makes
how this
sense.
is working, right? Is that if you're going for the mech, you're going for the mech. You're not going for a strong rumble. You're not going for a strong fizz,
Right.
right? You're going for a strong mech. And the attack speed's higher. The amount of cleave damage is down 20%, but the
Hmm.
amount of attack damage is up almost double. So
That's true.
the again, like they're putting the fantasy in the mech, and just like if you're a fighter pilot, right, and you get shot down, you're gonna be injured when you come out, probably, right?
Yeah,
uh
that's
and,
true.
and so Annie and Rumble are going to be tankier. Fizz will have faster attack speed, so they might be able to compensate for it a little bit, but they should not be given a full life, I
Yeah,
think,
that
in my opinion, especially if the mech's going to be this strong.
yeah, it's definitely a stylistic way to go, and I do like the fact that like, well, the problem is like Rumble is better, sure, but does he really have an identity? He's just like another guy. I think one of the things they said in the initial video that Mort did with I think it was either Witty or Lunch Boy. I don't remember which developer he had on, but it was like Rumble is the shadow fiend of TFT right now, which if you played auto chess is like Shadow Fiend is essentially a one-off champ that you don't care about his synergies. He's just really effing strong. He does have or at least used to have a synergy that was mildly relevant, but it was like you just played Shadow Fiend because he was so good in terms of stats, and you didn't care that he didn't synergize. So like I guess that kind of gives Rumble an identity, and Annie already kind of had an identity because she was a sorcerer and she was like a frontline
Yeah,
ish
but do you see
sorcerer.
like what they're doing? Like the kinda, and I think they push Annie and Fizz into their infiltrator versus sorcerer identity. I think
Yeah,
Rumble, they've tried, because remember, a 3-star Rumble does like 2,000 damage
yeah, I would have.
with his flame spitter. But I mean, mech armor 30 to 70 match. So like basically, if you want the pilots to be something after they eject, you
Yeah,
take the mech down, and the mech feels underwhelming,
yeah,
right?
I
And
get it.
you
I
never want that.
Yeah, I would have just. I think instead of making Rumble a like stat bot, I would have liked Rumble because Rumble like at least one of the pilots feels like it should have 3 synergies to me because Mech Pilot is kind of a. It's like Ninja. Well, it's not even like Ninja because Ninja gives you stats just by having one, right? Um, it's just if it's not 3, it's nothing, right? So like they are at the disadvantage of having just one stat.
Well, the counter to that, though, is because Annie and Rumble and Fizz are all getting buffed too. When you don't have the mech and you only have 2 of the units, you're going to be doing better,
Yeah, no,
hopefully.
I get like I don't think it's unbalanced to have just more stats. I just think it would have been I don't even want to say more interesting. I think it would have just been it
I
would
think
have just been a different
with
way to do it.
the hard part with Rumble is that he's demo, and there's only 3 of them in the game.
Right. Demo just feels like especially now with no demo spat, demo feels like Mech Pilot feels like a half of a trait, even though like it's like it's either nothing or it's like 2 traits. So it's like
I think you could make Rumble a protector and
or like a
have
battle cast or something, and
yeah,
like
but then when you're a protector and a mech, then every time the mech ults, the mech will get a shield too. That feels a little broken.
yeah, battle cast on the
Um,
mech might be broken too because
yeah,
it's
so
gonna
I
take a
think
lot
that's
of
kind of
damage.
like what we have to make. Maybe in order for the mech to be balanced, you have
Yeah,
to
it's probably a
neuter
balancing
one of the.
thing, and like adding stats is fine, but again, I still feel like, and maybe for what it's worth, we haven't really had much of a like you're just playing this because it's so good, which we do see, or at least if I recall correctly, saw a lot more in actual auto chess, where it's just like
Mhm.
I'm just playing this unit because it's real good, and stats, please, and like you take a couple of synergies here and there, but otherwise you don't care. Whereas TFT is more like the cohesion of the team comp and having a carry and a front line and this and this and this. So I don't know, interesting way to take it. And we'll have to see how it plays out. Boop. Any other interesting changes that you want to go over before we jump off here?
2. There's 2 changes I want to go over.
Okay.
The first one is, even though I think they did okay with Mana Reaver, and I still think that was a healthy spot, um, Aurelion Soul
Oh, right.
now steals mana.
Yep.
New fighters drain 10, 25, 50 mana from their targets. The damage is going down at level 1 though, so he's going to be ulting more often probably, and his starting mana though is going to be starting at full. So I don't know how you just feel about mana stealing, like, because the thing about Mana Reaver, it wasn't like they were stealing that mana, if that made sense, right?
Yeah, it felt more like poison.
Because the last time we saw stealing, like with demons, right, it was not healthy, right? Maybe mana wasn't where we needed to steal. Stats maybe, but mana probably not. I don't know, man. I don't know. Whenever like one character, I know it's tier 5. That's just something that I think might get annoying, but maybe it's a good way to get Aurelion Soul to play because the ults from Echo are going to be better. And so you're going to keep Echo from ulting for longer if you get good targeting. I don't know. How do you feel about that?
I think depending on how durable the Aurelion Soul is, like it can be bad because like you can get it to the point where there's like a tipping point, right? Where like there's a fight going on and Aurelion Soul is like slowly stopping ults from happening. They're still going to happen, but like there's a tipping point where now Aurelion Soul is going to be stealing more mana than they're gaining, and the fight just ends, right? Because your opponent's no longer ulting anymore. I don't know, like that's the theoretical part of it. I think in theory that's not a problem if it's just not happening too often. Like if it's just like if it's more like a singed where it's like, okay, you're getting poison off and they're going to, stop casting for a little bit, but because of the targeting paradigm and how fast they go, it's not really ending it's not really stopping too many fights from happening, right? Maybe it's okay. But it's definitely, I agree with you. It's a scary place to be. Stealing mana is a tough.
It didn't work once, right? Like this is something that didn't work, but it was a whole class. So maybe now that it's just one, maybe that's a better way of doing it.
Yeah.
But he's also very, very squishy. So we'll see. We shall see. And then the second one that I wanted to talk about is blasters, just real quick, because Jinx no longer fires rockets with the extra shots from her blaster trait. So her initial just rocket AoE damage is getting buffed, but I don't think she's going to get that extra damage from blaster trait anymore. So that's a nerf.
That's a pretty big nerf.
But her AoE blaster damage is going to be 1,000, so she's going to hit harder on the target, but less so. Like it's extra. You might not actually feel that as much, but I think the blaster trait, along with the fact that Ezreal also got nerfed, not nerfed, he got adjusted. Here, let me find him real quick.
But the rocket damage is she's only getting a buff on her tier 3
and tier 2.
No, tier 2 is still 200. It's 125.
250 for me. 125, 200, 750 to 150, 250, 1,000.
I must be. Let me refresh. Maybe they changed it because it says 200 on mine.
Oh
yeah. Wow. I must have just. They must have. They literally changed it today. Then, because I just refreshed it now. It's 250.
Yeah. Crazy.
Okay, so she got a 50 damage buff. That seems like a huge nerf.
So I definitely want to keep it. We don't have to talk about it, but like that's definitely something I want to keep an eye on in general, because blasters have kind of come and gone throughout this patch, mostly coming. Blasters coming, a more iconic duo.
You are on fire.
I'm sorry, everybody. I'm sorry. It's this scalp burn that I have. It sucks. But in terms of a class, blasters aren't getting talked about just, blasters this, but a lot of the individual blasters got touched in ways that are going to be really interesting. So Jinx is going to be doing less AoE damage. Ezreal's going to be doing way less as AoE damage.
Yeah.
Way less. He's Ezreal mana is, but he's going to be ulting way more often. But the EMP damage going from 200, 300, 600 to 100, 150, so to 400. So like,
so he's not doing
some people were
anymore.
building, Jeweled Gauntlet on him. And what's interesting is that even though he's going to be ulting more often, the effect of his ult was unchanged.
Yeah.
So I want to see where that falls on balance. But Ezreal and Jinx, two things that might feel a little understated now, just reading through the novel that is this mid-patch update,
Yeah.
but might come into play as we experiment with the game. Once like all like the fun like Bard and the new Janice stuff goes, gets a little old, and we
Yeah.
start going back to our
To
older
just wanting to
Jan
win.
start experimenting again, right?
Yeah.
I wonder where blasters are going to fall.
I'm very interested because I think Kog'Maw opens up an interesting spot, but we'll get into that in future weeks. The last thing I wanted to talk about, and I think I'm blurring, my memory is blurred, but I think we talked about blue buff getting changed last episode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we did. Okay, so I won't go too deep into it. I'm still like, my official stance is I'm bummed that Seraph's Embrace is gone, because I love that, like, ooh, let me just cast, but it limits what they can put
Maybe
at 40 mana.
maybe it's gone for this iteration of
Right.
Galaxies, but maybe there is like a world where like Viger comes back and
Yeah.
Seraph's Embrace is just gets the call back.
Yeah.
That's the cool thing about TFT. Just because it's gone now doesn't mean
Right.
it won't come back later.
We
Right?
want Kennen. Now that we've brought up Kennen, I want
I
Kennen
really want
back.
Kennen too. I don't know why, but I do want Kennen back.
I just liked Ninja. I thought Ninja was really cool.
I thought Ninja Elemental, even though it took him a while to balance it, eventually got to a place where it was like really interesting. I miss Daisy. But yeah, Kennen. I miss Kennen, and he's a Yordle. I don't say that very often.
Did he? Oh, yeah, he did count as a Yordle. Yeah, he was Yordle, Ninja, Elementalist, right?
Yeah, because remember it was like Rabadon's, Morello's, Dragon's Claw.
Yeah.
Or
Oh,
something.
that's right. Oh yeah, when Dragon's Claw just stopped magic damage. Those were the days. Okay, and on that note, yeah, that'll be it. Well, I'm sure we're gonna, of course, this is going to be impacting everything we're going to be talking about in regards to TFT for the foreseeable future. So we'll be diving maybe a little bit deeper into some of the other things. We'll see what glaring OP thing we missed that we didn't talk about, or what thing we nailed. Much more likely the thing that we missed than what we got right. But we'll certainly be getting to those in future episodes. Boop! Where can people find you on the internet when you're not here and not at discord.me/Little Legends Podcast?
At Booposaurus Rex, also at Giant Slayer TV on Thursday nights. I'll probably be casting. I don't think there's a tournament tomorrow, so I'll probably be casting the first
Wednesday.
Competitive tournament on the new patch with all
Yeah.
this stuff. So I'll come in with a ton of info next week based off of the Giant Slayer series. So I'm excited about that. Ooh, that's really exciting. So you can find me there too. And yeah, what about you, Blevins? Where can we find you on the internet and online?
Find me at _Blevins on Twitter. And you can also, so I don't have any official details or anything to announce, but in regards to Giant Slayer, and if you guys are fans of Legends of Runeterra, all I'll say is stay tuned. Stay tuned. Yeah, so guys, make sure you're going to discord.me/Little Legends Podcast. Come play game night with us. Let us know what night you'd like to see game night, because it's, I think, all but confirmed it's not going to be on Fridays in the near future, with things that we will announce soon. But yeah, let us know and join there. Also, guys, of course, make sure that you're leaving iTunes reviews, all that good stuff, and we will see you all then. But until next time, for Boop, I am Blevins, and we will see y'all later and talk about more TFT.